Simply move into the business of this part of the agenda. At the first plenary session on Saturday, I presented on behalf of the working group to the API conference, or to PACI, version 5.0 of the draft declaration, and invited additional comments on that declaration. For those of you who may not have been part of the PACI, just to reiterate very briefly, this process has been on since the 1st of June 2011, when the very first version of the declaration was developed and went out for comments and consultations. We now have before us the sixth and final version of that declaration, which we propose to ask for your endorsement, and therefore we can adopt it as a conference. Now, what I'm proposing will happen is this. We would open up this discussion very briefly. What we have before us is what we consider to be a final version of the declaration that we are tabling for adoption. And we really, at this stage, cannot change anything because, first of all, it's going to be quite chaotic to try and do that. But secondly, we've had nearly 4 months of consultation on this declaration. Since Saturday, when we invited additional comments, we've had a flood of comments and suggestions. A lot of colleagues stayed up for most of the night trying to incorporate that. So what we really have at the end of the day is a consensus document that essentially has been negotiated, trying to accommodate very different perspectives as best as possible. Some people may not have got everything they wanted to see in the declaration, but I would urge that we see it in the spirit of give and take as something that seeks to bring together our collective interest about how we can advance the right of access to information. But we think it's important to get a sense from the room about whether this is something we should go forward with, or if not, maybe we should just close and go home. So there would be some brief discussions, not for the purpose of altering the declaration, because that's going to be really difficult. But if you have difficult questions, I have two of my colleagues on this side of the room with me, Henry Miner, who is the director of the East Africa Office of Article 19, and Zoe Titus, who is from MISA in Windhoek, Namibia, the coordinating secretariat for the working group. They will answer all the difficult questions you may have. And thereafter, I would invite a motion for adoption. Hopefully, we would all unanimously adopt the declaration. We've had commitments already made by the UN Special Rapporteur and the African Commission Special Rapporteur. We just need to give them something to go with and do the work they want to do. So it will be very disappointing if we are unable to present them with a document that we all back very strongly. So that's my proposal about how we move forward. If we could take 10 to 15 minutes just to get the temperature of the room, whether we want to go forward with this. Okay, I see Alan Madu. Microphone. Who has the microphone, please?
I have no suggestion except a recommendation regarding the French version. I went through very rapidly, and there are certain elements who have to be adapted, really. So I suggest that you indicate that the original version is English, and that you work again on the French version to make sure that it's really the version corresponding to the English version. Because if you go to the intergovernmental level, by definition, the French text should be exactly like the English text. This is very important, both, I'm sure, in Africa, but also in Paris and New York.
Okay, thank you very much for those observations. I think they're valid. The French version had to be done in a real hurry because, as I said, the English version was finalized sometime in the middle of the night, and colleagues have struggled to try and do a French version so that it will be available for this session. So that's well taken. We will do some additional work to clean it up. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, given that we have in this room some of us who represent government, as well as civil society organizations that work in many countries, I would recommend that before even going into the discussion that we go into a special section in keeping with protocol, and then at the end close the special section and then move on in that line. So I would think we need to be cognizant of protocol here because we're going to adopt a document that is going to be binding and we have to be forwarded to government, so the record should reflect that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite clear what exactly you're proposing we do. Can you please just, what are the steps you're suggesting that we take?
I'm suggesting that before we go further, we need a motion and a second for us to go into a special section to deliberate and then hopefully adopt or not adopt this thing and then close that section and continue with the conference because it's going to be reflected in, it has to be reflected in the minutes.
Okay, some of us are aspiring politicians and parliamentarians, so we're not very yet familiar with parliamentary procedures. But what I'm hearing is that before we can discuss it, it needs to be adopted. So somebody should move for it to be adopted for discussion.
A special session.
Who will be in the special session? Okay, there's somebody who wants to comment on the suggestion, Professor Akifele.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman. In view of the fact that we don't have all the time, in view of the fact that we have another unbreakable appointment in the next few minutes, in view of the fact that it is a job that must be done, I move that we do surgical bypass and adopt so that we debate the documents. Thank you.
Okay. It seems we have a motion and a counter motion, and it becomes very complex. Omar, you want to comment on this as well?
Okay, Chair. I think we have not reached the stage of moving a motion, and the Chair has not invited, moving motions. And there are real comments that we have to discuss, and we cannot really move without taking into consideration any important view, Chair. And I think here the declaration is well said, and most of the views are reflecting. But we know this is something that relates for the citizens. For the people of this continent. And it is really very important that all major stakeholders that can play a crucial role are addressed on this issue. The civil society is addressed, the business sector is addressed, as part of the social and economic partners. And I think the trade union movement should be addressed as well and included in this. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. This is what I propose to do. We have a motion by Honorable Norris Tuer, the Deputy Minister of Information for Liberia. If there is a seconder for that motion, and then we find out if there is a seconder for the motion by Professor Akifele, we can then see what the dominant view in the room is about procedure. I don't want to impose any procedure one way or the other. I'm a practicing Democrat. So we are dealing with a procedural issue. Until we settle that, we can begin to deal with the text of Professor Huber.
I don't think we really have any conflicts here. My understanding of where we are at the moment is this. We'll do something like I'm going to do right now. That this House constitutes itself into a special session to consider the document before us. If that motion is seconded, we go ahead. That's what the Liberian minister, I think, was asking about. That's it. I have now moved that this House constitutes itself into a special session to consider the African Platform Access to Information. We need a seconder for that motion, and then we can move ahead.
Okay, thank you, Professor Huber. Who seconds that motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say yea. All against the motion, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. So the House is constituted into a special session to deliberate on the document. Thank you very much. I think this will serve me when I get to Parliament. So can we then have comments on the text and generally whether we should go forward with it? That's essentially the whole purpose of this. Is this something we want to take forward as proposed in the document? If there are no further comments or questions, then I would like to invite that somebody moves a motion for us to adopt this declaration. Okay, may I invite Advocate Pansit Lakula to move that motion?
Thank you very much. I move for the adoption of the African Platform on Access to Information.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Can we have a seconder? Okay, may I invite the Honorable Deputy Minister for Information for Liberia, Honorable Norris Tuer, to second the motion.
Mr. Chair, fellow colleagues, if I can obtain a second, I second the motion that was just moved by my colleague from South Africa, that the African Platform on Access to Information is adopted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion for adoption. All in favor of the motion, can you indicate by raising your hands? Thank you. All opposed to the motion for adoption, can you please indicate by raising your hand? We have one opposition to the motion. I think clearly there's almost unanimity. The document is hereby adopted. Thank you very much. We would like to have some signing ceremony on the now adopted African Platform on Access to Information, which is a document